Hello, everybody. This is episode 26 of Medicine with a Mission, Faith, Family, and the Profession. My name is Paul Waller. I am the president of Christian Sports Medicine Alliance. And as always, this is the month of March, and this is National Athletic Training Month. And we are highlighting Christian athletic trainers across the country and just hearing their story of faith and how that intersects with their profession and their setting that they're in, and how God is using them and how He has been faithful to them throughout their career. Today is our guest today is Chris Blocker. Chris, good day. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. It's actually pretty rainy and foggy out here in Southwest Georgia, but otherwise I'm doing blessed.
Well, good. Well, Chris, let's just start off. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and where you are and how you got to be where you are right now.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Fayetteville, North Carolina. My dad was a 20-year Army vet, and my mom is actually an immigrant from Panama, and she lived in Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is where I was born. When my dad retired, he actually was a youth minister, so I actually grew up in church just like he did. So I attended all the youth explosions, youth rallies. Like I basically lived in church Monday through Saturday, to the point I used to joke with my dad. I was like, "This is my second home, isn't it?" And he would just laugh about it. I've been an athletic trainer since 2015. I got my undergrad at University of North Carolina at Pembroke, from Pembroke, North Carolina, so Division II school. I got my master's at Life University in Marietta, Georgia, in sports science, and I've been in Georgia ever since then. My original first full-time job, I was at Emory University, which is a private Division III institution, one of the premier institutions down there. I was there for about a year, and then I came to LaGrange in fall of 2018, where I've been there since. And with everything with COVID, it kind of job description switched around, but I've actually been able to adapt quite well to that. So I've been in Georgia now since 2015. I've been certified for 6 years. And I meet my wife. I actually met her while I was in college. We just celebrated our 7th anniversary on March the 1st. And she's been with me since undergrad, so she knows the ins and outs of the program. So when I'm gone for quite a while, I don't have to really explain it. In fact, it gives her a chance to have the house more organized, is what she says, because shoes aren't over the ground, book bags aren't over the table, like things actually look nicer. But
Yeah. So during COVID, you said your job description kind of changed around and shuffled and stuff. How much of a challenge was that for you as a staff, y'all as a staff?
Well, the first thing that happens is that we actually downsize a little bit, unfortunately, because well, kind of back up a bit. So when furlough kind of hit, when COVID first hit, we actually got furloughed for about 3 months. So from about late March to about early July, I actually wasn't doing athletic training. So I picked up a second time job. I actually did retail over at Family Dollar for about 3 months, and I hadn't done retail since my sophomore year of college. So it's been a minute and stuff. But I didn't care. I didn't care when I did my resume. People was like, "You're a little overqualified for master's degree." It's like, I need a job. Like, I didn't care. I just need to provide for my family. So going forward, with the downsides, going from 5 to 3 people and having 18 varsity sports. So that's a big change in that. And then with Division III, they move all competitions to the spring. So basically they're going at the same time. So that made it quite different there. But one thing that made it a little bit of a challenge was how we had to do the testing protocol. So we're trying to work with our local state health department and to try to get the funds to go with it. And that was a big issue with our athletics, because especially with football, trying to test about 115 athletes once a week by the NCAA, that was like going to run our school dry. So our school decided to bow out with football, and that saved a bunch of money in that way. And so what we do is that we assist with our nursing department to where, for say like the high tier sports like football and basketball, who we test twice a week, they'll come through our athletic training room. And we'll have the head of our nursing department. She'll assign about 5 or 6 seniors, and then we'll assist with that. So I'll actually help with kind of the logistics of them coming forward, my head and my colleague, and they'll come and do the middle of athletic training room, like 6 little stations where they'll sanitize their hands. They'll fill out their disposition form. We'll do the swabs there, and he'll collect them all at one time, send them off to FedEx for the PCR. We'll get them within 8 to 24 hours. And that's how we usually do the results. And if it's a same day thing, we'll do the antigen test, which you get back in 15 minutes. Just soak, rinse, and repeat, and just assign times for people. And at first, a little bit of organized chaos, but after a while, it started to get as smooth as a breeze to where we can knock out over 100 students in less than 30 minutes. But again, it wasn't with a lot of trial and error, kids not coming to their time, coaches not understanding, people pestering us about other things. But most of that, it just came with just a lot of understanding that, hey, things were just constantly going to be in change. And as I would tell my wife, everything's written in pencil, because with COVID, nothing's really set in stone, and just understanding it just can change.
Yeah. So you mentioned that your father obviously was 20 years plus in the Army. Thank you. Mr. Block, for your service. And then he transitioned into a youth pastor, into a pastor role.
Yes, sir.
And you're just like me. I mean, I was in the pew. I think I was born in the pew. Church every time the doors are open. How did you? How have you seen your faith in Christ? How has that intersected with your profession? Because obviously we're not in a traditional Christian profession. It's not that way. But there are a lot of us out there that are believers, that are strong believers.
Mm-hmm.
How have you seen God use you, and how has He been faithful to you through in your career, in your profession?
I will say definitely is like particularly how you the treatment of people. So like a lot of students, especially when they come with like particular issues, particularly personal ones and stuff. And I also notice a lot of people in the profession will kind of notify their person by their injuries, like, oh, this is my ankle guy, this is my shoulder guy and stuff. And I didn't know these are people like they have aspirations, like, oh, hey, this person here wants to go to be a political scientist and go get their master's degree over at American University, or this person has aspirations to maybe be a full-time pro, even though we're D3, but people have those aspirations. So letting them know that they're more than just the injury and they're just the person assigned to my sport. And I can't tell you how many times I've had kids just sit in my office, I have the door closed. And even though I give you a good example I had, it was last year, it was a kid on my softball team and she was having a really rough time in practice and stuff. And she came and she got hurt, but her injury didn't match how she was reacting and stuff, because it was a pretty mild grade 1 inversion ankle sprain, but just in the way she gave off her vibe, and I've gotten to know her pretty well, I just knew something was up. So I just asked her just kind of sit down in my office and just close the door, and I was like, hey, just talk to me, just don't even worry about your ankle, just tell me what's going on. And she just kind of surprised at the fact that I just want to sit down and ask her like what was going on for her personally. And she opened up about how school was really a struggle for her. Like she was part of SGA, she was leading on the softball team, even though she was a freshman and stuff. And she just felt the pressure of being a high level college athlete. Even though it was D3, she had these aspirations going forward. And I told her, I said, look, I want to worry about you mentally, emotionally, spiritually before you even get touch your ankle. And she just appreciated the fact that I talked to her as a human being. And even though I wasn't really like sharing my faith at the time, but just expressing to her I care for her as a person. And from that day forward, every time she sees me, she goes out of her way to wave at me, even in the weight room and stuff. She may give me a hug out of nowhere and stuff. It's just like, hey, I just appreciate you just actually just talking to me, because everybody just worry about all these things I can do for them. But I just wasn't feeling it at the point. I was like, I understand. It's all about how we treat you as a people, because I tell the kids all the time, what you do out there in the field out there, especially on the school, that's a bonus. But I'm not hired or fired by that. I care about what happens up here and in here. I want to have this conversation 5-10 years from now. We joke about the same thing that we have. And so just for me, just really treating them as human beings, as people, and just letting them know that we care for them more than just for what they do for their sport or what they can do for their coach. Because like I said, their coach is kind of judged by how the scoreboard looks or how to go from there. And that's fair. And there are coaches that are really demanding like that, but there are also those that truly care about them as well. But at the same time, it's that next man up mentality, and if they get left behind. And so I don't care about you being left behind. I just care about you, because at the end of the day, that's how I get critiqued and judged by my job, is how I treated you as a patient and as a human being. And that, I think, kind of gets lost in a profession where we get caught up in the numbers, like how many referrals we may have to get out there, how much we're preventing the school and like damages and losses because of stuff like that. I'd really critique it by the end of year eval that we get and how I made the students feel. And even though some might have some harsh comments, and they come up, not everybody's gonna like me despite my nice $1,000 smile that I may give them every day. I know there's some kids that don't like me. That's fair. But I know as long as I give my best effort, and to the fact that I treated them as I know they should be treated, as they say in the Bible, I can sleep at night. Mm-hmm. So that's how I go about it every day.
So basically what you're saying is it's all based on relationships.
Yes, definitely. I take pride biggest in the relationship I develop with the students.
And I've said this on like every single, because everybody brought the same thing before I even talk about it. Everybody's brought the exact same phrase, is because I've always believed this, that our profession is based on relationships. And I really believe that having Christ in our life makes it easier at times for us to develop those relationships.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if it's because, I guess it's because of the way that we want to emulate him in our lives. It just comes forth in the way we treat our patients and our athletes and our coaches, our parents, our administrators. We're able to develop those relationships a lot easier.
Yes, sir. I really feel like having that servant leadership as God, as Jesus would did, because he washed his disciples' feet and they looked at him and like, "You're the Christ. Like, who are you to be doing something like that?" People will look at me and stuff like how I go out of my way to really treat them as people. It's like I'm just a guy in the background. Like, I mean, they're the ones that are going out there putting their bodies on the line and try to make the best life. I'm just basically along for the ride to be sure that I can keep them safe. But at the same time, I look, it's bigger than just your sport. Like a lot of people think, so, oh, I'm just a football player, I'm the softball player. Like that's their whole identity. I said, okay, well, what happened is say, God forbid, something tragic happened to where you couldn't do it anymore. Then what do you identify as? You gotta have to have more than that. And that's where I will slowly kind of tick where my faith will come in. And a lot of people will notice it based on just my calm demeanor, because like I said, it's just how I try to bring my presence. And I don't really force it upon people because some people are really exuberant about it, and that's fair. But now people might be a little turned off if you're pretty aggressive about your pursuit. And I just use it basically by how I carry myself. And that kind of leads to another conversation. Because a lot of times, like I just find out more just from sitting my ATR and kids just sharing information. And if I can kind of organically slide it in there to where they can ask more questions, then that's what we go for. But ultimately, just to let them know us as ATs, that servant leadership. Like I tell, I'm here to serve the student body. I work with the coaches, I work with the administration, but ultimately, you kids are my job. That's the reason why I get up every day. Like you're the reason why I identify as what I am.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I agree totally. I mean, again, it just comes back to relationships and that servant attitude, that mindset that we have to serve. And that's one reason why our part of our mission statement for Christian Sports Medicine Alliance is service, is making God known in and through our profession by equipping, educating, equipping, and serving.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Both, I mean, we want to serve you as the Christian athletic trainer, the professional, the student, the GA, whatever are, and also the people that we're going out to work with, whether it be on the mission field internationally or domestically here, or just we want to encourage our community, the ones that we're engaging, like yourself, to help them in any way possible to serve your patients, your athletes. So yeah, it's all about relationships. So what challenges have you seen since you've been a professional for 6 years, 7 years?
Yes, sir. 6 years. Mm-hmm.
What challenges have you seen, and how has your faith met those challenges?
Oh, well, one of the obvious ones with COVID was being away from the profession in a way for about 4 months. So that actually, I had to more than like I had to tell my kids by identifying as an AT and stuff. So going along with that, like being around my wife at the time, worrying about how we're going to provide for the family and stuff. And I had to think about some of the tougher times I had with my parents growing up. Like, say, a good example, when my dad got out the military and stuff, he was all aboard about being in the military. He was a soldier, he was a warrant officer and stuff. But when he finally retired, and things like that. He's a family man. I was about 6 when he retired. My brother was a year old, but he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do next. And he always identified with being a soldier. But he had to set the example for my brother. And I said, okay, I'm more than just a soldier. Like I have to show it for my family. And that's where his faith came in. And I'm glad that he instilled that within both my brother and myself about how to be a good family Christian man. And unfortunately, my dad passed away back in 2012 from cancer, but I still carry those same values with me, even though he's been gone for 9 years. And just something with that, just learning how to deal with those type of adversities where, I've dealt with, living through having my parents not having enough money to provide like they wanted to, or, I've actually had a time when my folks got evicted from their house because they couldn't provide like they wanted to, and seeing just the hardships on there. And so going back forward to myself, just understand that I tell myself I'm more than just an AT. Like I am a family Christian man, and eventually when I have my kids, I want to share those same values and expressions with my future child that I have for myself. And another big challenge for me that I especially learned early on in my career, and I tell it on to students, that I'm not defined by my mistakes. Because when you're a first year coming into your professional job, it's like, okay, I got to be perfect when I do it. And I have to show the people I know exactly what I'm doing. And I hate to say it, but my first full-time job, when I had some, even though there's simple mistakes, I took them very, very hard. And I was like, man, there's no way I should have missed that. I should know this by now, even though I'm fresh out of grad school and stuff. I felt I had to keep this image. And I was putting this extra pressure on myself because I had to live up with excellence. I'm the first one in my family to go to college, let alone go to grad school. And I feel like saying like my dad, I got to put his example for my brother to follow, make my mama proud and stuff. And I'm just really bringing myself down. But also had to understand that even though as a Christian, like God expects us to try to be perfect, but it's not expected to actually be perfect because we have all have sinned and fallen short. Saying I'm gonna make my flaws along the way. But as long as, again, as I even tell my kids, like the great intention was there, and like I say, if I put my best foot forward, because I don't have MRI vision, I may miss it, even though the Lockman's test may seem negative at the time because your hamstrings give me a false positive, everything checks out, and we give you that MRI a week and left, like, yep, it's completely gone. At first, you're like, oh man, I really butchered this as an 18. How the heck can I miss that and stuff? It was by the book. And luckily, people like my boss now and stuff up is like, you can miss it. Like it happens. You can do everything correct and still turn out wrong, but you did everything by the book and you will find. And
Mhm.
that's why I have to live with this. Like we have, I like to say we are perfectly imperfect. And the fact that we try to pursue the person that was, which is Jesus, and try to attain what he has, that's what I'm trying to go for in there and try to understand that I'm more than just my flaws. And with my flaws, I can give a testimony to a person who's had similar instances. I gotta give another good example. I had a kid, I think it was like a year or two ago, and she was worried about school and stuff. And she was just worried about, oh man, I can't live up to these expectations of my family. And I had to tell her about me and said, look, what year did my degree that saved me in there? So, Chris, you graduated in 2015. I graduated high school in 2007. It took me 8 years to get my degree because I transferred 3 times, I changed my major, and I was at a crossroads of what I wanted to do. But I look at my bachelor's degree bigger than I do my master's because of how hard I had to work for it. But there was a lot of crying nights and feeling like I was a failure because it took me so long to get my degree. But I eventually got it despite what I felt. And I got to tell you, my faith in God, my wife at the time, my family, with all that encouragement, and that helped her so much because she's looking at me thinking I had it all together. Oh no, ma'am, no sir. I wasn't always the person that you saw here today, and
Yeah.
that's what they got to understand. It's not always going to be perfect. You got to go through those imperfections and impurities to get what you are. It's like my dad
Mhm.
used to say: to get to gold, you have to go through fire and find out those impurities to eventually to where you can see the image that you want to be. And I carry that with me every day of my life. So
Yeah.
just to share that with the kid was huge because it just like, oh wow, you don't always have to have it together.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in it for just a little bit longer than you have. I got started a little bit later than you did professionally. And, you know, with my getting my bachelor's took me a long time. We'll just put you that way, a long time. And I had to. There was a point in time in my college career, I had to get 2 jobs to pay for school because my mom got laid off from her work. But just like you were saying, is that because of the support of my mom and the role model that she set for me as a believer and her godly influence on me sustained me and helped me with that process of taking years to get my bachelor's degree and finally getting that job. When I got that first job, I was 28 years old, and I went into a large 5A high school, like 2,500 kids, and I was the athletic trainer there. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, just like you, I'm like, I've got to do all this. And my head football coach is, you've got to settle down. You've got to develop a very thick skin or you won't last.
Mhm.
Really started prioritizing the things, and really my faith was what, there's so much prayer and so much study of the word, and really got me through that first year so much is yeah, again, I just think, with being a Christian first and then an athletic trainer second, if we totally lean on him and rely on him through prayer and through study and just seeking him in our job, it makes our job more easier possibly, and we're able to glorify him through our work.
Yes, sir. Exactly. Right on the heads.
So before we close out, Chris, what is that, when you look back onto your life and where you are now and at this point in time, what would you say would be the one verse or verses that you could say, this is my foundation. This is the verse or verses that is my life verse, the ones that really resonate with me, that get me through those tough patches of days.
I always tell myself I go through Psalms 23. I go through the whole thing because my dad made me memorize it as a kid because about the Lord being my shepherd and going through the valleys and the highs and the lows. I understand that because even as a Christian, you're going to have times we have some great highs, but there's going to be some lows in between. But even way to find that way, it's like I depend on them whether I'm doing great or things are going bad and stuff. So my dad would always say, you're either in a storm you're coming out of a storm or you get through it. One way or another, you got to figure out which one you're at. And no matter what happens, you keep God in the forefront. And also, I think about Ephesians 6, where it talks about put them on the whole armor of God. Because every time I leave from here, I got to put on the breastplate of righteousness, got to put on my helmet of salvation, the sword of faith, all that stuff. Because no matter what happens, I got to have that protection going forward for everything outside this world to not affect me as it is. And, just keeping those two, and just especially with, about the armor, because my dad being a soldier, my dad was one of my heroes growing up. So knowing about him with his, his Kevlar, his rifle and stuff when as a kid and stuff, but I think about him even back in those gladiatorial times, like, man, my dad was like a warrior. He went out there, and no matter what happened and stuff, my dad still kept his faith. And then my mom was a big proponent of it as well. They both shared it with me. So I think about those two and just keeping it with me at all times. And I feel like going forward, I try to help it show just through my actions more for people, just trying to be that calming presence that they need, that they always have to have, and that somebody can not only see that, oh, I'm going to help you get through this hamstring strain that you have, or somebody having, rotator cuff surgery, like somebody here that, okay, if I really need to kind of let something off my chest or just get a good sound advice coming forward, or just someone to just kind of vent to, like he's going to listen and treat me as a person. And I know I keep coming back to it, but that humanity, I feel like really gets lost sometimes. And I really try to stress that with the people that I interact with. Like, you are more than just what you identify as in your occupation. Like, I care about you as people, and I try to make it legit. And I definitely like toot my own horn, but I remember my boss told me not too long ago, where after I finished doing tennis, and I remember our rival opponent, their number one, he actually went down, and I actually went out to help him and said he was cramping. So I just did some basic stuff for cramps, and he ended up beating our number one, which clinched the match. But he told me about a year later, their their coach at their place was so impressed with just how I treated him, because it was freaking out and just how it was, that he wrote my boss a letter about how I treated him as a person, just helped him calm, and his parents appreciate. I had no idea this even happened. I was just doing my job. But he felt the need to tell me, because he saw that at this point in time that it might have been a good job to really just let him know what he's doing is making the difference. And I said, Rob, I'm just going out there helping the kid. He said, but they appreciate it because they felt like as a rival, he was going to force him retire. Said, no, I'm going to treat them the same. I don't care if they're my kid or their kid. They're under my care because 18 didn't travel. So they're as much as mine as they are theirs. And their coaches appreciated it. And then when they came to play us this year, he said, I remember what you did for my guy last year. You're going to be my favorite visiting AT every time we come here. I'm going to request make sure it's Chris all the time. I'm like, okay, if that's what you want. So going back to that, yeah, just that humanity piece is so huge for me, because I tell people all the time, man, I got to thank God for bringing me where I am, because there's so many times I could have given up on the way, and I did. But thankfully, people who knew what was bigger in store can see the bigger picture, help bring me to where I am today. Otherwise, that 8-year journey would have ended a long, long time ago, get to where I needed to be. And I tell my story's not over yet. There's so many pages I need to fill, but hopefully I meet a lot of new friends like yourself along the way to help make the story that much better.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you very much for joining us on this early morning. You are about to go to work and take care of the kids and take care of the athletes at LaGrange College.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate you very much for coming on with us and doing this segment with us. And if you are interested in learning any more about Christian Sports Medicine Alliance and what we're all about, please visit us on our website at christiansportsmed.org. If you want to follow us on Twitter, we're there also at tweetcsma. And if you are a Christian athletic trainer, or you know someone that is a Christian athletic trainer, and you want to share with them about a place where they can go and do life and share what God is doing in their life, and maybe share their verse, their story, or prayer request, whatever. We have a Facebook page called Beyond the ATR. It is specifically for athletic trainers across the country and around the world that are believers in Jesus Christ. And Chris, again, I thank you very much for joining us for this segment. Have a great day, and God bless, brother.
Same to you. I appreciate the invite, sir. You have a great one as well.
You too. Thank you.